Hello everybody and welcome to the Tuesday edition of Video Clips, and I'm really enjoying all the great feedback I'm getting from watching the movie. People have watched the movie Diet Fiction and or read the book, and you can watch the movie on iTunes, Amazon, Vimeo On Demand, and Google Play. And the book is on Amazon both in an ebook form and you can order the paperback. So it's about the diet industry, and it's a great expose. It features a lot of experts including me and other people here from Wellness Farm Health. So remember that. I just booked another speaker for our conference this weekend, or well, I did it this past weekend, but our conference is November 8th through 10th this year, 2019. Dr. Thomas Seyfried from Boston University, who is the author of a great medical textbook on cancer called Cancer as a Metabolic Disease, is going to present. He was here 4 years ago, and people he got a standing ovation. It was amazing. So now we have the author of American Overdose. So we're going to have somebody talk about the opiate epidemic. We're going to have somebody talking about cancer, all topics that I know people want to know a lot about. If you live within driving distance of Columbus, Ohio, February 23rd, Saturday, is our Food Over Medicine retreat, all day with meals, and we're going to talk about many things medical and health related. So information about it's online. You can send me an email and I'll be happy to send you some information. And then about comments. So again, I want to thank the woman who posts, or whoever it is, who posts every week 60 suggestions for improving my appearance. And here's a newsflash. Thanks so much for the feedback, but that's not what this channel is all about, all right? I'm not trying to enter a beauty pageant, for crying out loud. I'm trying to give people science-based information. Another thing is you guys write all the time, well, you say not to do this, but I do this and I feel great. And that's a testimonial. It has nothing to do with science. And then some of you write that you're very aggravated that I don't approve all the comments. This is not an open forum. Once again, the purpose is to disseminate science to people, give people science to think about. And then last but not least, the people who are angry that I don't post the articles and references on the website. We only give so much away for free. I've told you some of this, told some of you in the past through private exchanges. I've got these crazy people here in this office that want paychecks on Monday, and landlord seems to want rent every month, and somehow we have to pay for that. So that's why we give some stuff away for free and we charge for other things, all right? So anyhow, I do love the comments. I approve all that I can, but again, capital letters and bad words, not ever going to happen, just so you know. Okay, so I have some really happy news to start with as we get into our first article for today. The Canadian government just released its new food guide and dietary recommendations, and boy, are they better than the previous ones, and they're a whole lot better than the United States guidelines. The guidelines are presented in a really user-friendly diagram which shows real food on a plate. I think that's a great idea. It's a much better version of the USDA's My Plate, in fact, with half the plate allocated to fruits and vegetables and another quarter for whole grains. Now I have one criticism, and that is that they've got fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and protein. And the reason why I object to that is treating protein like it's a food group. People don't eat protein. They eat foods that contain protein. And focusing on that macronutrient really draws attention to it like it's the most important thing to eat, and it's not. You eat more carbohydrate than protein. So it sends the message that this is more important than it is, and it just goes to show we still have a long way to go because we have so many nutrition experts that still can't get over their very entrenched views about protein having more significance than it really has. Other than this, the guidelines are really good. That glass of milk, the dairy that's in the My Plate diagram, it's been replaced in the Canadian guidelines with a glass of water with a recommendation to make water the first choice beverage. I think that's amazing. And then 3/4 of the plate is made up of fruits, vegetables, and whole grains. And even the protein section has pictures of nuts and beans, so they're not just focusing on animal foods and that kind of thing. The accompanying suggestions are, for the most part, really good too. They're much more practical and useful than the ones that go with the United States My Plate. People are advised to do things like pay attention to their eating habits, cook more, enjoy their food, share meals with others, read food labels, and to be aware of the effect that food marketing can have on choices. Even the recipe section features more plant-based options. But I'll tell you what I'm really excited about. The response to the guidelines has been, in my opinion, almost as important as the guidelines themselves. And here's why I say this. historically, when new guidelines are released in the United States, you have some people, like the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics usually writes a letter saying, congratulations to the committee for coming up with these fabulous guidelines and following the science. And it kind of makes me want to throw up, to tell you the truth. It's because that's not what's going on at all. And then you have people like me who are writing critiques and don't like the guidelines and disagree with them based on science and evidence. And so I feel like I have to comment on it. You can't let it pass. But what happens is consumers get confused because they hear all the warring factions out there, and it's easy for a consumer to say, oh my gosh, the experts can't agree, so I think I'll just keep eating cheeseburgers and French fries. So when there's universal agreement that the Canadian guidelines are pretty good, takes a lot of the confusion away from consumers and makes it much easier for consumers to do the right things. So I think it's good that there's consensus about this right now. So there's more detail needed, but the eating scheme is fairly consistent with what we teach here at Wellness Forum Health. And people who follow the Canadian guidelines will end up a whole lot better off than following the US guidelines or the internet chatter that never ends about diet. So let's hope the USDA is watching and saying, boy, those Canadians did a great job. Maybe when we revise our guidelines, we'll do that too. I wouldn't hold my breath if I were you, but maybe we'll do better next time too. So it's always good to see some good news. And right along that line, since we're talking about essentially eating a plant-based diet as recommended by the Canadians, a new meta-analysis concerning the effect of dietary carbohydrate is really interesting because it considered both the quality of the carbohydrate source, focusing on fiber content, and more precisely quantified both the amount of fiber required to have a positive effect and the effect of dietary fiber and carbohydrate intake on very specific markers of health. The study included just under 135 million person years of data from 185 prospective studies, 58 clinical trials with 4,635 adults, so a pretty massive amount of data to crunch. The observational studies showed a 15 to 30% decrease in all-cause and cardiovascular mortality, the incidence of coronary heart disease, stroke mortality, overall mortality, type 2 diabetes, and colorectal cancer for those consuming the highest fiber diets when compared to participants consuming the least amount of fiber. Clinical trials showed that participants consuming a high-fiber diet had significantly lower body weight, lower systolic blood pressure, and lower total cholesterol than those eating a high-fiber diet. The risk reduction was greatest at fiber intake of between 25 and 29 grams daily. The authors wrote that the fact that the effect was dose-dependent means that most likely even higher intakes would result in even further risk reduction for things like cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, and colorectal and breast cancer. The effects were similar for whole grain consumption, so much for the grain bashers out there. There was no effect when comparing diets with high versus low glycemic index or glycemic load. I've written quite a bit in the past, and there are articles in the Health Briefs library about the fact that the glycemic index is really pretty useless, all things considered, for choosing foods, and this study confirmed that. Now, the reason why I said earlier that this was a really important study is because study design is a very common problem in conducting research on diet. Many studies have compared a high-carbohydrate diet to low-carbohydrate diet without any qualitative analysis of the high-carbohydrate diet the consumers or subjects were eating. Processed foods are often high in carbohydrate, but very high in calories and fat, while having no nutritional value. So if you don't really give some qualitative analysis to the carbohydrate diet, a comparison of people eating a high-carbohydrate junk food diet with those eating a cleaner high-protein diet has resulted in many studies showing a benefit to high-protein eating. This is misleading, but most people don't take time to read studies to really look at them carefully in terms of study design. So as a result, what you have in many instances is studies that compare two bad diets to show which of the bad diets is better or which of the bad diets is less harmful, depending upon what factor they're looking at. And that really is a shame. This one actually compared a health-promoting carbohydrate diet with a lot of fiber with other diets, and noted that the more plant food you eat, really, the better off you are. So this analysis sorted out the high-carbohydrate healthy eaters from those who were eating a lower fiber diet, lower in quality, whatever the nutrient makeup might have been, and it clearly showed that higher fiber diets are better for health. Well, here's the thing. There's no fiber in animal food. There's very little fiber in junk food. The fiber is in whole plant foods. And so what this really shows is the more plant foods you eat, the better off you are. Not a new message from me, but just more reinforcement for a consistent message from me. All right, hit the subscriber button. Remember, we're going for 25,000 subscribers. As usual, pass this on to anybody who you think might enjoy watching it, and I will be back to you on Thursday with more news.